Hi. Okay. Hi.
Hi.
Okay, good. Wasn't sure if oop, there's another person.
Let's see.
Meryl, do we want to run the meeting like usual with me doing the kind of screen sharing part?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, great. And I can also, let's see, I'm going to make you a co-host so you can, well, you can both keep an eye on the waiting room.
Okay. So at this point, I just see 6 people.
So
I think that's right. Yep.
Okay.
So we need 2 more for our, 1 more for our quorum.
One more?
Mhm.
Maybe I'll just send a note to Carol.
Okay. Oh, there's Tom.
Good, there's Tom.
I didn't have it on the agenda, but maybe we should just start with our introductions and stuff like we usually do.
Okay. Do you want to start before we start?
No,
Oh, we have 3 minutes. Okay, good.
just a couple more minutes.
Do you know if Carol has a cell phone?
Yeah, I think that's what the phone I have for her is that. So I'll try to reach her.
Oh, I have it. It's okay. I'll do it because
Thanks. Yeah, we do have a quorum though, so we are good in case she can't make it. There's another person. Rick. And Rick, could I have your last name for our minutes? It's on mute. Hi, Rick. It's Lydia.
hey, Lydia. Good evening. How are you?
I'm just fine. How are you?
Very good, thanks.
Good.
Very
And
good.
great.
Do you have visual or just audio?
Well, I think it's up to you, I think, to start your video if you want to.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get that. Yeah, I'm not seeing it here.
Might be either on the top toolbar or the bottom toolbar of your Zoom window. And
It's not like we do this an awful lot these days. I'm just trying to
Yeah.
share screen chat participants. We've got that up. Oh.
Okay.
What?
So you're Rick Rivera.
Yeah, click on the more.
Okay, I was able to reach Carol and she's on her way.
Great.
Try to click on that little red video.
Hey, guys.
That's showing.
Hey,
Hi,
Tom.
Tom.
Meryl, Lydia.
Hi there. Oh,
No,
there's Carol. Let me
no.
quickly admit Carol.
Okay.
And that means that we have,
Oh, there we are.
hi there.
Finally. Hey, guys. How is
Hi.
everybody?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. Seems like every time in the middle of one of these, something else is a little bit different, but
Yeah,
we all should be pretty accustomed to them by now, though.
yeah,
It's an adventure, though.
it is every time.
Yep,
It's like
Hi,
it's always an adventure.
yep. Okay, so I have 5 o'clock, 5:01, and we have a quorum, so we can start the meeting.
Yes,
And if everybody would please mute themselves so that,
No, I'm just now getting on.
Gary Lucas, if you could mute yourself, that would be great while you're on the phone. Do you see how to
Okay.
do that?
Got it.
Great, okay. And the reason that we do this is just because you've probably all experienced that when we do Zoom and we interrupt each other, it's impossible to hear anything. So we're trying to do it so that we speak one at a time and can hopefully hear what everybody's saying. I'm Meryl Mead Fox. I'm a co-chair of the commission, and we'll go around and just introduce ourselves if that's okay.
I'm Lydia Vivante, co-chair of the commission.
Carol Ubriaco, secretary.
Tom Sigio, treasurer.
Luke Manning, commission member.
Thanks, Luke. And then I see that we have Rick Rivero and Gary Lucas here. Thanks for being here. Oh, and Cynthia Cosavera.
There's
And
also,
Elizabeth.
oh, sorry to interrupt, there's Elizabeth's iPhone, and I'm not sure who that is for our minutes in case.
Elizabeth, could you unmute yourself if you're muted and tell us what your last name is?
It's Elizabeth Murphy and she can't seem to get it to hook up.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, Carol McAuliffe has just joined us as well.
Okay,
From
thank
the
you.
Handicraft Shop.
Hi, Carol. Thanks for keeping yourself muted for now. Let's see, so we have several agenda items, and the first item on the agenda is 151 Hamblin Farm Road, the shed demolition. And so who is here to present about that?
Gary Lucas?
Great, thanks. So Gary, would you like to tell us about the project?
It's an old garage. It was a carriage house called the Carriage House. There was some living space in it. And Dennis Murphy purchased that last summer. And his intent was to fix it up and try to reuse it. So we asked Justin to come over as the building inspector and take a look at it. And when he looked at it, he wouldn't even go inside it. He said, this building is condemned. He said, but to confirm that, you need to hire a structural engineer and see what he had to say. So we hired Varn Philbrook, and I think we submitted his report. Varn wouldn't go in there either. He looked in the door. The floors are all rotted. The sills are all rotted because it sits in the sand and it's on the downhill side. So all the water has been running to it for years and years. The roof has got a sway in it. Part of the roof has collapsed. we thought that we would see if we could salvage the foundation and build from the foundation back up, but there is no foundation. What they did was laid rough sawn 4x4s in the sand and built from that, and those are gone as well. So we had the electrical company come and disconnect the power to it. And again, they wouldn't go inside to disconnect. They did it from the outside, and that was that. So it's pretty rough shape and a good wet snowfall, and it's gonna come down on its own. So Mr. Murphy would like to take it down so it doesn't fall and hurt anybody.
Mhm. Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions about this?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. I went over there today and I took a picture or two. I looked inside a little bit and yeah, it does seem to be in very sorry condition
Mhm.
and doesn't look particularly historically significant as a barn building.
Yeah, I agree. I went over there today too. I was so glad it wasn't the barn that's at the end of the road. That really beautiful old barn.
Yeah.
But yeah, it looks like this one needs to go. It's too bad. I appreciate your efforts to try to save it.
Right. Mr. Murphy even hired Alan Cabral to come in and do some perspective drawings of what exactly was there so that if we could preserve it. But when we discovered there was no foundation and all the sills all around the bottom, doesn't make any sense to get hurt trying to save it because it's coming down.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are some folks that sometimes try and salvage wood from such buildings, and I know there's a person on Main Street, for instance, that uses salvaged wood for furniture. And I just don't know if there's anything great in there that might reach out to some folks to see if they'd be interested. But
Mr. Murphy wanted us to try to salvage some of the pine boards that were on the wall inside. And when we went into the building, we took a few of them off, but you can't move around in the building because the floor is all rotted. It's just too dangerous. We only got like 2 or 3 boards off. It's just too dangerous.
Mm. Well, we certainly don't want anybody getting hurt. Yeah. So shall we, is there any other discussion? Okay. So I would like to make a motion to approve the demolition of this building at 151 Hamblin Farm Road. Any
I
second?
second the motion.
Thank you. And I vote aye.
Lydia, I.
Carol, I.
Tom, I.
Luke, I.
Okay, thank you very much. The demolition is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then the next item on the agenda is 135 Commercial Street, although aren't we continuing that, Lydia?
We are. Luke let us know that the Ericksons would like to revisit it a bit later on.
Okay. And so the next item after that is 15 Squires Pond Lane renovation. And who is here to present about that?
Good evening, Honorable Chair, so to speak, Commission members and perhaps staff. For the record, my name is Rick Rivero. I'm a professional engineer with the architectural and engineering firm of Provost and Rivero, actually located in the northeastern part of Connecticut. I am a long-standing Cape and Island guy. I actually live in Truro. And this particular project was really for one of our long-standing job supers, work construction management and architectural firm. Typically work in the medical field. We're kind of tweeners between the 20 and let's say $75 million a year guys. They were not big like Perini and not small like house builders. Mostly medical oriented. One of our key supers that's been with us some 25 or so years and has done most of our major projects at vacation in the Kendrick area of Wellfleet for years. And for a period of time, I said, you know what, John, I'll find you something down that way. And this place came on the market. It had some intrigue. taking a look, yeah, it's certainly in disrepair, and I certainly applaud what you folks do commission wise. We do a fair amount, both in the greater Worcester area and in the eastern part of Connecticut with historic preservation pieces, and it's always a challenge where it's got to be economically viable, but on the other hand, you want to preserve what you can. This house is in pretty tough shape. As everybody knows, it'd be less costly to probably demo it than it would be to do a full reno. On the other hand, it certainly has some pretty neat characteristics. It's right adjacent to Main Street. I'm sure there's some history there, and would certainly love to work with you folks to find out whatever we could, historically. Again, I'm a mechanical engineer undergrad, structural civil grad. We've got some pretty creative, architects on staff. You look at it in at least the field card says it's a circa, 1870 or so structure, but it looks like the main house was 1870, and going through it, there's some characteristics in there that, have been compromised. Clearly, in 1870, you weren't turning the thermostat up and you weren't flipping the light switch on. So there had to have been a center chimney in here somewhere. I believe, the addition to actually the west, which is where the 2 bedrooms are in the existing structure that I sent to you folks, that was done a period afterwards because the ceiling heights is 7.6 versus the 6.8 in the main structure. And then I think the third kind of the galley kitchen on the northerly side was another addition. Not necessarily being a historian, but none of those were built recently based on the balloon frame post and beam construction that's there. But certainly the view from Main Street, it clearly has some some pretty neat characteristics as I see it. I'd love to see if any of you folks, I know the museum's around the corner, have any history on this place, be it photographs or knowledge or people or anything else that we could possibly use, in our renovation of this. And if the answer to any of that is no, I'd like to have a general discussion, on some, some rudimentary characteristics that, that you guys might like to see. For instance, there was a center chimney because of some remnants of some fireplace on the second floor, but not on the first. Clearly, the overhang over the front door, there's some 2-bys with something kind of hanging up there, so to speak, that clearly wasn't, in keeping of the period, like an awful lot of the, the cornice with side light characteristics of almost all the other entries along Main Street. Windows, what statue was that dwelling? Was it, an 8/8 type of configuration with the windows, or was it more an 8/0, or, a 0/0 as far as the mullions are concerned? And any of the trims, any other door configurations or locations, what the original siding was it cedar shakes, or was more a clapboard configuration? And anything else that you folks might like to see that would add to the, the general character of downtown. The folks down there have really done, I think, a very nice job. I'm sure working in conjunction with you people, and it's, I think it's really been nicely done. So with that, like I said, I greatly appreciate you guys getting us on the agenda so quickly. I did do some just Revit renderings of existing pictures, basically existing conditions. I did some floor plans of the best I could with some real quick measure ups, and then some proposed floor plans that didn't alter an awful lot. Perhaps another bedroom, or if I can get town water down there, and a general configuration of another bathroom that we did submit. So with that being said, I'd love to start some dialogue.
Okay.
Lydia, I looked for the Form B for this and I couldn't find one, but there must be one.
I found it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I can try and share the screen. This is one of the ones that was done in the 80s, so it's not a more recent one. And let's see here, share screen.
Do you know about the Form Bs, Rick?
I do not. I was going to interject and ask.
So, so these are historical records of the house that are done by professional preservation experts, and
Perfect.
we're renewing, we're doing new ones now with an expert, but we aren't able to do all of them. So this one was done back in the 80s, apparently.
Oh,
Um,
excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
that something? Oh, there we go. Wow.
So at the time this was done, they didn't have the street numbers, but I'll try and scroll through it kind of slowly. You can see the windows.
Yep, there were 2 over zeros. That's interesting. That's great. And that's looking at it from the church parking lot. You folks are all familiar with a place, correct? That would be a view really from the looking kind of northeast, I believe, from like the corner of the church parking lot. Excellent. And it had clapboard. The clapboard, was that a painted shake? It's hard to say.
Looks like
Yeah.
two different things,
I
doesn't it?
don't know if I can,
It looks like a
Um,
shake on one side and clapboard on the other.
It does.
You're right, it does.
Although the clapboard on that westerly side, I guess that could kind of be either way. It looks like it was painted. It does on that southerly side. Looks like a painted shake, but on the westerly side facing the church parking lot, that almost looks like kind of a wavy clapboard.
Mhm.
it does. Looks like there's some design.
Are there any other historic photographs or anything of the front of it? I'm kind of intrigued with what the overall main door may have looked like going into that. Right now, it's about a 2'2" door with, a plywood little porch over the top of it, and kind of in disrepair. But I'd love to make that more inviting.
I think there's also one of those very typical doors with one square window. Maybe that's on the lane part. Let's see. So here there's a brief description. It says one of the outbuildings, there was a pump house there.
Okay.
The house appears to be 2 old buildings joined together.
2 or 3. It appeared like it was 3 to me, but at least 2. That's maybe that kitchen was that galley kitchen was part of the original, so it had a higher ceiling height. Certainly, the part that we were just looking at, folks, was an addition because the ceiling height was. Oh, this is great! This is great.
This you can find on it's the Mass Historical Commission website. It's mhc-macris.net. That's mhc-macris.net. And there is a program all over the state. Historic houses have these for buildings.
I believe I was on that site and looked through it today. There were 4 or 5 pages in Barnstable County, but I wasn't able to find this one, although perhaps I was looking in there, and maybe that was noted historical houses. But this is great. If possible, send me the link to this. I would love to go through it further.
Sure. And well, this is just part of the history and things.
Yep.
From time to time, sorry,
which
go
is
ahead.
kind of intriguing.
I see they mentioned Christopher Robichaux finding something there. The Robichaux's still live at the end of that road, on the right-hand side as you're going down.
They do. Okay.
They've been there
with a garden.
Yeah, I think so. They've been there for generations. So
Excellent.
they might be somebody to speak to too. And Richard is quite historically knowledgeable as well.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
He may have some additional photographs, some color photographs.
I would think that he might.
Would you have anything in your archives, in the museum, or?
I can take a look. It's very sketchy. It just happens to be if somebody has taken an old photograph and donated it. So it's a little, I can take a look through the photographs, and actually so can you. If you go to the Wellfleet Historical Museum, you'll see collections.
Yep.
And if you hit collections, it will tell you where the photographic collection is.
Excellent. Okay.
Okay, I'll take a look and I'll see if I can find anything, but it's sometimes we have the house, but it's not identified as such.
Right.
A little,
That's okay.
yeah, I mean,
Even if
I'll
somebody
take a
was
look.
if they were photographing something else and this was in the
Right.
background would certainly be helpful.
Right. There might be photos of Squire Pond Lane, for example, and you might
Mhm.
be able to find it in it. That's a real possibility. I think this is a charming little house. Took a good look at it and went down yesterday to look at it, and I think it's delightful. It's
It's especially delightful, Carol, looking at from the top of Squire Pond Lane and from that area of Wellfleet. There's some kind of neat roof lines in there. And would certainly like, would certainly like to preserve it. It's going to be some work. We're talking about, built on top of sand and on top of rocks and on top of old 4x4s. It's certainly the same way this is.
Right.
But being a structural guy, it's, you jack it up, you make it stable, you shore things up with steel if need be. It's wooden screws and a lot of work, but
Mm,
I think it could be a lot of fun.
yeah.
That's great. Well, we appreciate the fact that you're planning to work on preserving it.
I kind of, it's right next to Main Street. You guys have done, well, the town in general has done what I find to be an admirable job. Yeah, it's kind of a neat little spot. It's certainly been in varied states of disrepair, and depending on who the folks were that were living in there most recently, I don't think we're spending a lot of money on maintenance. And there's none of the mechanicals, there's none of the plumbing, there's most of the electrical. There isn't really anything that's preservable in there, and the rest of it is, it's got some nice characteristics. So shore it up and maintain it the way it is. Did you folks see the proposed perhaps patio on the that'd be actually the northwest side, a little further down Squire Lane in the rear? I just looking at the front of this, from looking down Squire Lane from Main Street, I just find that face to be extremely charming. I would just like to leave that kind of the way it is. Once you sort of get around the back of the galley kitchen, there's not a lot going on out there. It's kind of dumpy back there now, but certainly a sitting patio to be able to take in, some of the westerly, the sunset over on that side towards the church parking lot. I thought would be the most appealing place for something like that. The town property record card shows a deck that I can't see any remnants when that was removed, but actually on the westerly side, or actually on the southerly side, facing Main Street. But I feel that would take away from the appeal of that face and kind of the roof lines on that side of the house. Our preference would be on the back side. I'm not sure if you folks would like to weigh in on that or not. Or once I get a little further along, what would your desires be on final renderings or material submittals or anything along those lines? Just let me know how you'd like to keep the dialogue moving forward. At this point in time, I have put an offer in on it. I wanted to talk to you folks. I wanted to make sure that the super that I was actually chasing this for, there was some interest in that, and continuing, like I said, he vacationed and his family did, for summers, in the Kendrick area until actually his mother-in-law remarried and sold the place. But so, kind of point me in the right direction as far as continuing of dialogue. The Revit model up on top was really just created from photographs.
Mhm.
The one on top is actually a look from the south. That's how one will look at it if you're looking down Squire from Main Street.
Right.
The lower elevation is actually a westerly elevation. And that is similar to the picture we saw in the Form B. That's actually looking at the gable end, which I think that's an addition for sure, the way it's put together. I thought the galley kitchen was an addition as well, but that's looking at it from the parking lot of the church side. That's actually a westerly elevation. So basically that's the same configuration we have. If you looked at the property record card, you folks that were out there, they put the electrical meter right next to the door, piece of trim on the end. God knows why they continued that. There's a piece of plywood with a couple of 2x4s holding up a little overhang over the top of that door. That's kind of unsightly. clearly the windows need to be changed based on the picture we have, but I'd like to do a configuration similar to whatever we saw in that period. Because that kind of indicates, the wealth of the folks that were living there and the type of structure it was, the number of mullions, in an older house. But, emulate that. You folks have a preference whether you went, black like the other adjacent property right in the corner of Squire and Main, or white, or, the trims. Some of the windows in this house are trimmed, some of them aren't. Some of them have the cedar shakes right up against the windows. Some of them are original period windows. There isn't anything in there that, that matches, to be honest with you. But certainly would trim it, do windows and doors, get the roof squared back up, get the floor somewhat level, get some structural integrity underneath it. But our plan was the general configuration would be maintained the same way it was. Siding either as it is or clapboard. Certainly like to trim the windows if that was what was done in the period. Match the mullions and the buttons in the windows and the colors based on the preservation period. Those are going to need to be replaced. Certainly roofing material need to be replaced. If we can chat about that, I can submit on that. I like to go with an architectural style shingle, something with a little bit more durability. But I'm doing all the talking. Is there anything else that you folks see on this that we could take under advisement?
Well, I think since you seem very willing to look at the history of the building and are interested in that, I would say maybe it would be good to try and get you some more details, some old photographs if we can. And that will inform our decision, I think.
That would be great. The more we have, the more we can emulate. And then any of the history, the folks that lived there, who originally built that and what they did for work, it was pretty limited back then, but some of the general history of folks that were there, that's kind of intriguing. It's kind of neat. It kind of keeps with the mystique of what you folks are doing. And quite honestly, the more of that we can emulate, I think the more valuable the place would be and the more in keeping with the surroundings it would be. And I think the better for all parties.
Yeah. And some of that information will be on the Form B. And when the Form B is updated, there may be more research done about that. The other thing I could say is that the standards, the Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation are on the town website.
Yeah, I do have those in front of me.
Great.
Yep,
Okay.
those were certainly that's understood as well as your mission statement. Yeah, I'll certainly do some more research. If you can get me the link for the Mass Historical Society and for the Form B.
Great.
I have been on your museum site, and now I know to see if I can find the collections. I'll peruse through that as well. But without any ex parte meetings, if we could just continue corresponding, just passing pictures or information or any historic pieces back and forth, or desires, email wise, perhaps we can even stay on the agenda, and I'll promise I'll be quicker next month, so I won't keep everybody here past dinner time. But continue the dialogue, and at that point in time, I should know whether in fact we'll be able to acquire the property or not. Right now, I had an offer in, and they counted, and I needed to talk to you folks to make sure I could get water down and get a septic in. So at this point, quite frankly, I'm an architect outside of his element, so to speak, that, without any ties to the place at all, other than it's still being on the market and the ability to write a check. Certainly the home inspector is not going to go in and out of there. Nobody's going to finance it.
Okay, well, thanks so much for coming before us, and we'll look forward to continuing the dialogue.
And I look forward, I think you folks have my email address. I look forward to whatever you can get me back for links for Mass Historical Society or Form B would be greatly appreciated. And perhaps continue, leave us on the agenda for next month, and I'll do a very brief update, and I'll keep you folks abreast of anything I may find in the interim.
Sure, that's great. Thank you so
Excellent.
much, Rick.
Thank you very much, guys. Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, and the next item is the AIM Thrift Shop. And I know that there are several conflict of interests in terms of this. How are we handling this part?
The town has a disclosure form that I completed it today and sent it into the town clerk, and it's going to go before the select board. I should just say that I serve on the board of the AIM Thrift Shop, and I'm a volunteer there as well, as is Tom.
Yeah, and I did the same, Merrill. So we got the forms. Well, my form had to be mailed, but it'll go in front of the select board. But Lydia and I had it's a charity, so we have no financial interest. We don't get paid, so that should be also stated in the minutes. We have no other than to help the group out. We have no financial gain by doing this for AIM.
And
The only one
Tom-
that has financial gain is Luke. So let me just give you a snapshot of what we're trying to do.
Do we want to
Everybody knows.
say what his financial gain is just for the minutes?
Well, I'll bring him in. I'll bring him in
Okay.
a second.
Okay,
The AIM Thrift Shop is located at 305 Main Street. We all know that. It's the middle of downtown. And what we're trying to do is replace the side windows and the back windows. So there's 6 windows in total that we're trying to replace. Now, with COVID, what we tried to do this year, we opened up sporadically, I would say, and we wanted to keep, we put the screen door on, and we wanted to have screens for all the windows. When we tried to open the windows, it was extremely difficult. These windows go back, I think, Lydia, correct me if I'm wrong, I think in the 60s they were replaced.
I think that's probably right.
So it's windows that just never were open before. We always used air conditioning, et cetera, but they just don't, it's not easy to open them up. So anyways, the board met the other day, and we talked about the 6 windows, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if you have pictures, but I think I sent pictures in. The front stays the same, which is on Main Street, but the side windows where the liquor store is in that park, in that driveway, that's the windows we're trying to replace. I think people can see. And of course, the 2 back windows on the upper part of it, I don't think anybody will see. How we got some pictures that Lydia found, and it's it's an old post office, if you can remember that. But it's difficult to see what type of window was on there. I don't know if anybody's got a magnifying glass or whatever that can kind of get a feel, but I did drive around, looked at a lot of the old homes on Main Street, and a lot of them are the 2/1 with a vertical line on the top part of it. And that's, I think, what we agreed to replace the windows if we get the okay. The windows will be Anderson double hung with white interior and exterior, kind of matches what we have today. And, with screens. We'll keep the historical sill, et cetera, et cetera. So now we brought Luke in as the contractor. So that's where he comes into play. So Luke's done some work on this and given us his recommendation on the windows we should use, as long as we get the approval from the historical committee. So that's basically where we are.
I couldn't figure out what those pictures were showing with the older windows either. It was really hard to tell how they were divided, but I think that 2/1 is pretty typical, and the openings are staying in the same locations, and the windows are as closely sized to what's existing. And the existing windows aren't, they're not really an antique window, but they don't meet the code requirements for the heat loss right now as they are. So it would be a much better product, and all the sizing is going to be just about exactly the same. And, you know, if I have to obviously recuse myself, I'm the only one who would be to gain by the project, but I'm happy to be involved and try to help out and give it as close as like for like as I can, with a better insulation value. So whatever else I can give you for information, or what you feel I need to do as far as recusing myself, or best way to move forward, just let me know what you think.
I have, let's see here, I can do a screen share.
I guess one
So-
question I had was, it says plastic exterior trim. Can you talk about that?
Well, the plastic trim that we use now is, I actually use a brand called Coma. I prefer it to AZAC, and I find it more convincing, or when it's painted, I think it looks even more like wood. And the main reason that we recommend using it, or most homeowners, when they get all the facts, they choose to use it, is because it of course won't rot. And if you work with it carefully, you can get the same appearance as painted wood. Really, it's dimensionally true to the wood that we can get. And the problem with most of the wood now that we can get, it's all new growth, and you have to paint it over and over again, and you'll probably only get maybe 15 years if it's in a problematic area, maybe less than that, before you start getting into some sort of rot repair, potentially. There is a couple products when wood really needs to be used, or people really pull to use wood. There's a couple products out there. One of them that I could look into that I've used before, or price out for everybody, is called Bodyguard, and it's a primed trim wood, and it's imported from New Zealand. Actually, it's farmed, and it's rated to be used outside, but it's almost the same dollar for dollar as going with a product that will never rot, and it eventually will rot. So more times than not, that's a factor that people take into consideration and end up going with plastic.
What was the name of the brand that you mentioned, Luke?
The brand of wood,
Yeah.
Bodyguard.
No, the one before that you like the better than the AZEC.
I like to use Coma, which is it's a product that I prefer over AZAC. AZAC, for a number of reasons, I kind of stay away from. But I'm sorry, I've got a commotion over my shoulder here. I'm trying to do this from the hockey rink tonight while my son's in his
Oh.
practice. So
Oh
my
dear,
goodness.
that's challenging.
Multitask.
yeah.
Thank you for being with us.
No, of course, it's just kind of a juggling act, and I'm not as familiar or good with my phone as the computer at home. But in any case, Coma, the main differences that I like about it is it has a little more like a wood look, and it's hard to dent. AZAC, if you hit it with a tool, or if there's a pebble stuck between boards and you pull one board off of the stack, you can get like a trail of the pebble or a piece of sand, and it's kind of soft and not nearly as hard. And I like Coma much better, but it's not as well known, probably because it doesn't have the amount of advertising as AZAC has. in any case, it comes white and then you always paint it, the manufacturer, so that you don't void a warranty, you have to paint it anyway.
Mhm.
And it looks just like painted wood if you're working with it well, in my
How do you
opinion.
spell- I'm sorry, how do you spell that?
KOMA.
Okay, good, thank you.
And they have they have a historic sill that matches the sills that are out there now. And then there would have to be white cedar shingles woven in with the existing ones that would gray out with a little bit of time and match everything. But we would be using the cedar shingles to patch in around the windows as needed. Like I said, there is a wood that's rated to be outside, and you should get some longevity out of it. And you know, I'm not opposed to working with it, but when homeowners or property owners get all the hard evidence and the numbers, and you can tell them if for the same money roughly, choice A will rot eventually and choice B won't, and they look almost identical. Usually, for better or worse, people are steered towards or decide to use plastic products.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Well, I have a question about the interior window part. Is that going to be wood?
Yeah, the interior trim would be wood.
Interior trim, you mean the dividers, the,
Oh, it's actually the Anderson windows, they use wood that they send through a machine that wraps the protective white coating over it. And the inside is like it looks more like a paint job even than the outside has that more vinyl look. But it's all protected. It is wood, but it's encapsulated basically from the factory. You can get it in so that the inside is just the pine. But then more often than not, somebody just hires a painter to paint that pine. And when you get it from the factory, the individual parts are treated prior to being part of the complete window. So it's easier to get a thorough job and not have the paint, touch any other parts of the window, the glass or anything that you don't want to get paint on. So it's a guaranteed real crisp, thorough job when it comes from the factory.
is the outside of these windows vinyl or aluminum?
It's a vinyl. It's again, it's wood that's encapsulated with vinyl, and that's for the actual white that you see around the sash, which it's like a couple inches thick or wide. It's not really what you see when it's all said and done is the trim, which would be that Coma product unless we went with something else. But the windows themselves, most of them don't come with wood exposed on the outside, just because that would promote rot. And you can get them, and often they're could be even more expensive. But again, it's a product that requires a lot of upkeep and eventually will have signs of rot and need more attention and probably get a shorter lifespan.
I'd like to share the screen.
I just want to be sure. So on the inside, Luke, the window, what's it called? Munions?
So now I think you can see the style sheet.
The one that says grills for every home?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
these are the tall fractionals, but it would most like Luke was saying, it would be more half and half.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is kind of close to what was the original, but I'm not saying that, you know, you need to go back to that style, which doesn't open, obviously, or it doesn't appear to open.
Yeah, it'd be so nice
Um,
to be able to open the windows in the summer there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why we're changing the windows is because we need them to open.
Mm-hmm.
And these are on the side and in the back anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct.
Mhm.
There are these ones as well, which are kind of nice, like this style here, but it looks to me like there in the historic photo, there's windows down on the lower, on the basement, and that one is 2/1. It's like, or 2/2.
Yeah, and that would fit in with the rest of the town too, as you were saying. So any other questions or comments about this?
I know we always ask about the mullions if they're on the outside of the glass. I'm presuming since Lydia's on the committee, yes, that is true, right?
I'm unmuted now, right? You can still hear me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can
mhm.
hear you.
I'm sorry. Again, I'm not used to the phone. It's a simulated divided light,
Okay.
which means it'll have the exterior and interior of the window will both have the mullions exposed. It's not an applied grill, so it's the most convincing thing, shy of actually having the individual panes of glass. And it's what it's what the Anderson really recommends when they are going in front of historic in our town and others. And I also think that picture of the windows that you showed on the building, I was trying to zoom in on it more again, and it looks like it's divided right in half, but I'm not sure. It almost looks like there's some little decorative panes, or almost like stained glass type panes in the upper portion of it, but it's hard to tell for sure what was there.
I think that's right, that but I don't know. I can try and bring it back up. But yeah, I think you're right that it was almost like a leaded glass.
Yeah.
And the screens, I think they have the screens in the window in the historic photo, and it's just half of the window is the screen, and that might, so they must have been, double sash.
Mhm.
The Anderson windows come with a screen that covers the entire window, both sashes, and it's removable for the winter or for cleaning or whatever. That's the only other factor about that window, is it does have a screen that can be applied over the outside for the summer.
That's a wonderful old photo. I like the man in the doorway on the other side.
Oh, I see what you mean by the prairie style on the top.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I'm okay with voting on this. Is anybody else?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm ready.
Yes.
Okay. I have faith that you'll all do a good job by the building, since 4 of you are on the historical commission. So I would like to vote to accept the proposal as is.
I second the motion.
Okay, I vote aye.
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 I'd like to vote aye too. I'd feel more comfortable if I had the word from the select board, but I'll vote aye contingent. And
Yeah.
And I'm recused.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's probably the right thing
It
to
does
do.
seem like it is contingent, right? Because you've already submitted the paperwork. And so, yeah. Okay.
And if we could, one thing about us 3 being involved in the project, there wouldn't be a quorum if all 3 of us recused ourselves. So there's no way a project could continue. So that's why we need to have the disclosure form and have that looked at.
Yeah.
So do I
Okay,
need to put a note in the minute that it's contingent on the disclosure forms?
yeah, just to be sure. Right, Lydia?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, okay.
That makes sense to me. That the last thing I would want to do is overstep any boundaries, but I think that this is
I don't
know,
see them having a problem with this.
well,
I don't see a problem with this. Like I said earlier, I did one for the Shellfish Advisory Board. I'm the only, no, there's 2 recreational guys on there and there's 4 commercial guys. And we were discussing and voting on fees for the commercial guys.
Oh, boy. Okay.
And the town,
That would be a
yeah,
bigger
so,
problem.
so, yeah, so,
Well,
the
and it's so
town,
hard for people
town-
not to have a
the
conflict of
town approved
interest.
it. The town approved it.
They
So-
did, okay.
So I'm like, this is, but I think Lydia, is doing the right thing, and she asked me to do the same, and I think we're doing the right thing, just to be sure of ourselves, and we'll see where it goes.
Great. So let's see, the next item is 20 Briar Lane, but I'm aware that we have Cynthia Kosavera and Carol McAuliffe with us, and I'm not sure what they're here in reference to.
Carol was AIM. I don't know if she'd like to say anything, but she's
Okay.
muted, so if she wanted to speak, she could unmute herself.
Okay. And Carol, would you like to say anything?
Or maybe I'll unmute her. Oops, maybe I have to do it. Pardon.
Oh, I'm,
There she is.
Here we go. It's not, for some reason, there's a lag between my hitting the unmute thing. There, Carol? Oh no.
It did go green a minute ago. Maybe she did it.
Maybe she doesn't want to speak.
okay.
Unmute.
There she
There
goes.
Can
Oh,
you,
there.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. The only thing I would add is it's very important that we open windows because of COVID. We
Mhm.
cannot have the shop open without air circulation. And therefore it was, that's why we were opening windows and they couldn't open. So it's actually essential for the shop.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Okay,
So both for the comfort
I
of
mean,
people in the shop and because of COVID.
well, it's really because of COVID, because actually in summer we have air conditioning, but we couldn't use it. It's not allowed. And so what we have is leaving the screen doors open, opening the screens, fans going. And we have accomplished a very safe atmosphere. We've been commended by doctors from who have come in because we have taken so many precautions. So I just wanted to say how important it is that those windows be openable. Okay, thank you. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
consideration. This was
Thank you.
interesting.
Carol.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
I think I'll stay on because I live off Briar Lane and I'm kind of interested in this project. So I think I'll
Okay.
listen in.
You're very welcome to stay on.
Thank you. You can mute me again.
And Cynthia Kosavera, do we know why she's here?
I'll bet you it's 20 Briar Lane.
Okay. Do you want to say anything, Cynthia, before we start with Briar? Oh, she's muted as well.
I'm trying to unmute. Pressing the unmute. But it's not an immediate.
Oh, there, it just went. Oh, nope, it's there again.
Okay, I'm just gonna press it once and hope that it'll give it a few seconds.
So Cynthia, do you want to just let us know why you're here?
It's not, sorry, it's still muted.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Strange. Well, maybe you
Maybe
could
we
go
should
on
just go
to,
ahead.
Well, yeah, go on to the next.
He's not
one.
on the agenda, so, yeah. And Cynthia, if you're able to unmute yourself, please feel free to try. Lydia, I have the option to unmute the audio as well. I haven't been doing it because originally I was doing it and I thought maybe I was confusing the process, but should I try?
Hey, let me go. I'm going to choose unmute all. So let's see what
Oh.
happens there.
Cynthia, can you speak?
Maybe she could put something in the chat if she's not interested in speaking. or
Okay,
something.
that's a good idea. So
And then-
Cynthia, if, just so you know, there's a chat option at the bottom of the screen that you can click on and write to us. And I guess we'll go ahead with 20 Briar Lane. I have continued to send Maya and Thor of 20 Briar Lane emails each month. They have not responded to my emails since August. The emails are basically about this whole issue about trying to come to some kind of a compromise between their desire to demolish the building 100% and our desire to find some kind of compromise that at least would preserve the historic facade on the street side. They most recently went before the Zoning Board of Appeals, and Lydia and Carol were both able to observe that Zoom meeting. And so maybe you could update people about that meeting, one of you or both.
You want me to do it, Lydia, or you want?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, that'd be great.
Okay. To me, the most disturbing thing was finding out that the zoning board really has no interest in the historic aspects of the building or the architectural appearance of the building. They do not think that that's within the bounds of the description of the zoning board, which leaves us in a difficult place. One of the abutters brought up the fact that the shed had been built up. There were 2 additions on the shed that had never been permitted. And that a business was being run out of that building and the owner was not living in it, which is also a violation of the zoning board relations. You are allowed to have a business there, but you can only have 1 employee and you have to be living in the house, and neither of those were the case. There's quite a few employees working for Thor. There were also complaints about parking issues. Some of the local people find themselves having business equipment parked in their driveways when they come home, and they have to ask for things to be moved so they can get in. It was news to me, but apparently that they are also thinking of operating a juice bar out of the gym part. There were questions about whether or not outsiders could be allowed to come into that, or if it was only going to be with the gym people itself. As discussion went on, the zoning board seemed to be upset at the growing amount of commercial business that was going to be done out of that building. And I should also say that they are refusing to allow parking on that property for people using the gym. The parking would be reserved, I think, 1 or 2 handicap spots and for tenants in the building. And I guess Maya herself. So all parking would end up being off that property with the idea that people would walk from Town Hall parking lot or from Preservation Hall to go there. I personally don't believe that that's what will happen, but that's my personal idea. And I think the people across the street have problems ahead of them. I was very surprised at that because technically speaking, the zoning board admitted that there should be 18 parking spots for that building, and there will be none.
Hmm.
So I don't know where this is all going. They were ready to vote to allow this to happen until the illegal additions on the shed and the question of running a business out of the building that they weren't living in were addressed. That is supposed to come up in the December meeting. And it actually looked like Ben Zender was a little surprised by some of this stuff too. So I don't know. I mean, I can't really say that, but that's really where it is. I don't think it's necessarily going to be a help to us. I'm personally upset that there doesn't seem to be a plan for preserving the downtown area that the planning board and zoning boards are involved in, which kind of leaves us hanging out there. After a 15-month demolition delay, there's not much we can do, and I am very fearful of what's going to happen.
No problem.
Lydia's filed the thing too.
Carol, I'm gonna mute you
Mhm.
just temporarily because we can hear the background noise.
Yeah, thank you, Lydia.
Sure. There was one other point I think I'd like to make about that, which is initially the plan was to have curb cuts on Briar Lane, but that was not, I guess they met with the police and fire and that's not going to be allowed. So they would be using Ryder Court, the Sand Road, for all access to the building and for parking, et cetera. Which seems like, it's such a small, it's one of the nice little old sand roads that we have, like Baker Ave, and there's a few around. So just wanted to make that point too, but it's really changing the use, not just of that building, but of the little roadway as well.
And
I
that
think
little
the
roadway is
the-
also the access for the other people who live on Ryder Court. So it does seem like that could be problematic for the neighborhood. I was concerned to hear that they didn't notify the abutters for either the ZBA or the planning board meeting, because it seems like these are things that abutters would be very concerned about.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be surprised if I were in a butter. I wouldn't like to all of a sudden be surprised that, this was that the road has changed and the business, the building is gone and all these changes.
Yeah.
And when they were notified last April, my understanding from talking to some of them is that they were not made aware of the scope of this. And I think it's just beginning to dawn on them now. I would certainly, if Cindy's there, I would hope you would get the butters involved in this, Cindy. They need to speak up because that's really who the zoning board is going to listen to.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I've tried multiple times to unmute Cynthia and it's just not happening.
Okay. So any other comments from anyone? And again, anybody can add to the chat who's muted if you're unable to get unmuted.
It's crossed my mind, not relating to Thor and Maya and their proposed project, but with the demolition delay and it seems like if someone's willing to wait out the demolition delay, that's pretty much their option. If it comes to a smaller project like putting a sliding door front and center in a house that has an antique entryway, that it seems like it's there's no time limit. If somebody wanted to do that and they wanted to wait out a delay, we couldn't impose a delay for
Right.
for a renovation such as that. We would just say, no, we don't think that fits in with the look of the house. And then the building inspector wouldn't issue a permit based on that decision, right?
Yeah, it's, I think for imposing a demolition delay, it's very rare. We've only done it a few times and only after notifying abutters and holding a public hearing. The screen door or sliding door project, let's just pretend it's a project. That does sound like something we would just review at a regular meeting and come to some understanding. We've done that many times before, you know, with different projects. And
But
There-
if push came to shove and somebody really wanted to get that done, would there be an 18-month delay and something like that? Obviously, it's not a demolition delay, but it just seems like in my mind, I don't have any real clarity as far as, you know, with what I've gone through in the past and what my understanding was, you know, was that to get the permit issued, you'd have to go in front of historic and come to some sort of conclusion that everybody voted on, and then your permit would be issued. But it just seems like for the smaller projects, there's not that kind of line in the sand or that clarity as to what the delay would be, or we would just vote against something and then the building inspector would not issue a permit for that project to proceed, is my understanding.
I don't know if that project would meet the criteria of being preferably preserved and having to hold a hearing for a demolition delay. It doesn't sound to me like that would. It's all hypothetical, of course, but it doesn't sound like we would even get that far. You know,
Right.
we've always had conversations with property owners and worked things out. Typically, that's what happens.
But it's really up to the building inspector to back up our decisions.
Right. Well, that's what
That's
my
what you're
understanding.
saying, Luke, right?
That's what
we're
I'm saying.
asking.
That was my understanding. That was what the significance of the historic commission was. Not just to have a friendly conversation and then
Want-
move forward in whichever direction you'd like to.
I think I'm going through the paperwork that I have about the demolition delay, and nothing says specifically that it's only about demolitions that are 100% demolitions. But it does seem like, you know, a demolition delay is a pretty drastic action on our part, and that a 100% demolition plan is the counterpart to that. So it seems like we would be unlikely anyway to call for a demolition delay on something that's just a partial demolition for a renovation. But you all have been on the historical commission longer than I have. Am I right in that understanding?
Yeah, I think it's, yes, for sure. Just like these recent projects that we've approved.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But I think what Luke is asking is, what are the teeth that we have in this? Can we, if we want to prevent that glass door from going in?
Well,
Mhm.
and I want to be clear that I really am not bringing this up in any reference or regards to
Yeah, I
the
understand.
project, and I'm just wondering. It just seems odd to me, and I haven't come to a conclusion in my own logic, and I don't know for a fact what the real, you know, rule is on that as far as the smaller projects go. We always manage to come to conclusions, and it seems to be, you know, I think it's great if we can come to conclusions with homeowners on a case by case scenario, but if you can outweigh a full demolition, where does that leave the smaller projects, and what we could pose, or what the building inspector would, like, again, like I always, like I said, what I always thought was a permit wouldn't be issued for a project if it went in front of historic and we didn't come to some conclusion or compromise, or it wasn't voted for. So I don't know for a fact what happened. But
Um,
Well, I
Well,
think
it-
that's an excellent question.
I do too, because I'm concerned that we lack teeth in enforcing anything, and I think it's going to become a bigger and bigger and bigger problem. I'm hearing more and more about structures where people are going to be quite content to wait out the 18 months.
It is one of the longest demolition delays on the Cape. I think both Chatham and Wellfleet have an 18-month delay. So I think there's other communities that might have longer ones. That could be maybe one has a 2-year delay, but I'm not sure about that. So,
I would be willing to call Sarah Korchef and talk to her about your question. If that's okay with the rest of the commission, just to be
Yeah.
sure about that.
that sounds good. I think we should
Sure.
have it on an agenda because it's not quite on the agenda.
Yeah. So you think we should have it on the agenda before I call her?
No, I think it's okay to go ahead and ask her
Okay,
and then bring it back and discuss it because
okay. Thanks for the question, Luke. It's a great one.
Mhm.
well, thanks for being willing to look into it further.
Sorry?
Thanks for looking into it further.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, should we move on?
yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
And so the next item is Form B Historic Property Inventory Project Update about the 130 School Street Form B request.
I'm gonna share screen here. Give me a second. Actually, wait a moment.